It was the summer of 2009, 2010, and a school district was looking to transform what their classrooms looked like. So they put out a job, and they had a couple applicants. And that job was to be their first instructional coach. They had some interviews, and what they decided to do was to choose somebody who had a 15-year career teaching music. And the only thing that qualified him for this job was that at the time, he had Google Level 1 certification. Now, that person went into that school district and sat down with the superintendent. And the superintendent said, here's what I want you to do. Our school district just got into Google. Your job is to bring Google Classroom in. This is what I want you to do. I said, okay, not a problem. It was a K-12 school district, 5 buildings, and that's the job. Go. So the first day came. Superintendent said to the entire school district, this is Jeff. He's our digital learning coach. And then he went on. And so then the first day came, and I met with some of the principals, and the principal said, so what's your job here? And I said, well, I'm here to bring in Google. And then I went to the next principal, and I said, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, oh, I don't know. And then I went to the high school principal. I said, what do you want to do? Like, where are you technology-wise? All of these things. What's your vision for technology integration? Oh, we don't do that stuff here. So I got through the first couple weeks because I had all this high energy, right? We're still coming off of ISTE, and met people, had a chance to get into some classrooms, but every single teacher had the same question. What are you doing? And I said, I'm here to do Google, because that's what I was told I was doing. And then we got all the way to the end of our first year. The end of my first year as an instructional coach. And I sat down with my superintendent, who was my primary administrator, and he says, how was your year? And I said, this is how it was, and this is some of the things that we did, and look at the projects and look at all of these things. And he says, that's great. Show me your data. And I said, what? He says, your data. Show me what you did this year. How do I measure what you're doing? And I said, oh, we never talked about that. He says, okay. So, okay, let's put that one in the back of our heads. That summer, I learned Sheets, I learned Forms, I learned Power BI, I learned Microsoft. So I was gung-ho on data, right? Next year goes through, talk to every single principal. What do you want me to do? Oh, I don't know, just go into the classrooms and do that coaching thing that you do. Okay, great. So how can we work together to set me up for success? Oh, I don't know. 5 principals all said the same thing. We don't know what to do with you. We just know that the superintendent said you're here. My assistant superintendent, who was actually my on-record supervisor, didn't really want me there because I wasn't her idea. She was the curricular person. I'm the tech guy. So you can only imagine what she thought when Google Boy walks in. So, my second year, right? We're going to do this. So I get to the second year, and I had every single data point. I had Google Forms going into Google Sheets, going into Google Surveys, going into Google Sites, the whole deal. And I got ready for my ending meeting with my superintendent. And I said, here's the data you're looking for. And he says, yeah, but you're here for the second year. How are you making an impact? Oh, well, that sounds like you changed the goalposts on me. So the third year, I come back. I have the impact. I've got all the links. Here's my portfolio. Here's my data. Here's what I'm doing. Now, granted, throughout the third year, teachers were tired of me walking in the classrooms because what am I doing, right? If there's no principal saying you need to, what am I there for? So I made some friends, but I didn't make any allies. So I got to the end of my third year. And he says, look, I see you're working hard, but I don't need you anymore. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'll give you a fourth year here, but I'm not giving you any more. So I went through my fourth year. I had everything going on. And finally, at the end, he looks at me and he says, you're a burden on my budget. That was a wake-up call. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the instructional coaching position. You ready? That was a wake-up call for me. That was a wake-up call that said, I need to figure out how this position works, because I do not want to have any other instructional coach go through what I just went through. Having all the energy in the world, trying to support a family. The triplets were young at the time. How do you not lose your job? How do you not lose everything that you're trying to work for? The ironic thing is the year that I wasn't there was COVID. And even though I wasn't in the district, I had a lot of teachers reach out to me and said, because of you over the last 4 years, I'm ready for this. And I actually at that point could start to chart the teachers that I worked with were doing really well. The teachers that I didn't work with were not doing well and were struggling. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how we can work together with all of this stuff. That's what created the podcast. That's what created the network. That's what created this whole need for things. How many of you guys have ever seen the innovation curve? So this is something that is really important for instructional coaches. In fact, you're actually on this innovation curve. This innovation curve basically shows how do you make a movement happen in your district. The principal says, we want to bring in Google. Well, how does that work? The problem is not every instructional coach knows how to do that because not every instructional coach has been given the format and the formula to do that. The way that this adoption curve actually works is it says the first 2.5% over on the left, those are your innovators. Those are the people that if you show them the shiny object, they're going to go for it. Look to your left, look to your right, that's the 2%. Once you have that 2%, then you can get up to that in the teens, early 20s. And that's the, oh, well, if this person's doing it, I'm going to at least give it a try. Then you get your hump, which is the, all right, well, if my friends are doing it, and then you guys know, you can think right now in your district, who's on the right side of the curve, the ones that need to be pushed up the hill, only to go down. I see the smiles. You can think of the names. And then finally, you can think of the 2.5. I call those Statler and Waldorf. That's the people that are in the back going, never. I'm retiring next year. You're not trying. You can hear it right now. They just have the words with AI at the end of it. So we're going to talk a lot about this, but I want you in your minds to think about who is your innovators? Who are the ones that could be the next coaches? Or who are the lead teachers, right? Who are those early adopters? Whose classrooms do you walk into and say, hey, check this out? And whose classrooms do you walk into and you say, hey, I was over there with Cindy's classroom. Why don't we try something like that too in here? And she goes, oh, Cindy's doing it. So we're going to come back to this. Now, I want you to think of this because this was the downfall for my school district. They said, students are given blank and blank so they can create. Your job is to go finish the words on that. So let's do a little interaction. Students are given blank and blank so they can create. What is that in your district? What do the school districts say that they're giving the kids so that way, they could use technology? They can say we're innovating. They can say we're. A long time ago, it was students were given Chromebooks and Google Classroom so they can create podcasts, so they can create a slide deck. What is that in your district? Anybody want to give me an idea? Open forum. What was that? They're given Google Suite so they can create what? Slides. Okay. Give me something else. Students are given Canva, right? So they're given Chromebooks and Canva or laptop, whatever it is, right? So they can do what? The district wants to see the kids doing what? What? More slides, right? Now, if this is what your district thinks, we have a problem. Is this curricular based or is this technology based? It's what? It's tech based. Does your assistant super of curriculum care about this? Do your principals care about this? So let's change the formula here. Let's go a step further. Students are given blank and blank so that they can create something so they'll be able to learn. So let's go back. Students are given Google Suite and Canva so they can create slides so they'll be able to learn what? How to present. Give me another answer. History of, right? Cell division, right? Now have we merged all of a sudden with one line? Have we merged the technology side with the curricular side? So does that start to come up with the conversation in your mind of how do we start to talk and advocate for ourselves? Let's do one more. Students are given blank and blank so they can create blank, so they will be able to learn blank because they need to understand. What's that last thing? Students are given Canva so they can make slides, they can make a video, they can make a meme, they can make a website, I know it's Canva, we can do this a lot, right? So they'll be able to learn cell division, westward expansion, space exploration, you name it, right? What's the answer to the next thing? Because they need to understand. What words can we put into that? So we're at how to use that technology to enhance. There's one thing. What else can we put down there? What is that really asking on the bottom? It's a standards question, right? So they can meet, I could easily say, so they can meet the standards. If I walked into my curricular director of any school district and say, look, I need to use Canva, what are they going to say? Why? How much? But if I say, look, I really need to have Canva and I need to have this great technology because the curriculum demands it, and oh, by the way, that's core curricular standard state number what? Do you see how we can start to put this together? So with all of this, I really do believe that every instructional coaching program needs to have what we call a vision. And in that vision, it should look something like this. How do we reach these teachers, right? Our job is not this. Our job is not this. Our job is over here. So we come up with this, and everybody's going to come up with their own, and I hope maybe on the airplane ride home you can come up with one too, but mine just says, how can we create a plan that excites teachers to want to bring new lessons and activities into our classrooms? How do we create engaging lessons? Because if you walk in and you're just like, I'm here to teach Google, are the teachers going to care about that? But if we say we're going to excite what you guys are doing based off the fact that your curricular standards are there, do you think we're going to get into the classrooms more? Do you think we're going to have the data sets? So let's take a look here. I want to show you a quick video. This is one of my favorite videos on the internet. If you take a look at it, there's over like 70 million hits. This is the famous Dancing on the Hill video. Oop.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be the first follower. You stand out, you crave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Pretty powerful video. So here's the question that I always ask. In your district, who's the first person dancing? Who's the first person dancing? What do you think? Probably us. How many people agree? First person dancing is you. Does it work? Took me a long time to figure this one out. Who's the first person dancing that? Who has to be the first person dancing? Who starts the movement? Nope. Nope. No. Yes. The superintendent is the first person. The superintendent has to be the one to get up and say, we're going Google, and this is what it looks like. And then he's going to get in his Google Calendar, and he's going to get in his Google Apps, and he's going to get on. If he's not the one that's bought into this, who's not going to be there for dancing next to him? Who's the second person, otherwise known as the first follower? Who's the one that has to get up and validate the superintendent's message? Principals. So the principal's going to now stand in front of everybody on that day one and go, hey, we're going Google, guys. And what does he have to say? He has to say, this is Jeff. Jeff is the way that look, the district has a mandate. We're going Google. I am your principal. We're going Google in this building. Canva, AI, you name it, right? Here's our instructional coach. This is the guy that's going to help get us to that vision. And did you notice what happened when the third guy comes in? 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, 15. It's the innovation curve right in front. So it took me a while to realize this, but it wasn't me that failed that school district. It was somebody saying, we're doing this, Jeff's in charge, go. Can I make the move? Can I change the school district culture like that? Can you make the school district culture change like that? So who's your next follower, right? That could be the team leader. That could be a few things. Let's do a little audience participation here, since here we go. Slide. There, thank you, Canva. All right. So here's how one of the problems starts. How many of you guys, and we've got 10 different things in here, how many of you guys are instructional coaches in one coach, one district? Anybody? How many of you guys are one coach, one building? Put it this way. Find where you are and put the number up. Okay, so I got a few of those. I got a few 2 coaches per district, 2 coaches per building. I got multiple coaches that are different subjects. Ooh, look at all that stuff. I wasn't kidding with the bottom one. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different coaching programs. I've worked with coaches who are sitting in a call center, and the idea is if a teacher in somewhere in the state has a question, they would apparently call into the center for help. I don't understand that, but I kid you not, I worked with a coach who had a province. In order for her to go to another school, she had to get on an airplane. I think that's kind of fun. But that just shows you that all of these coaching models are here. Okay, you guys did such a good job with the numbers. Let's play this game one more time. There we go. So how many of you guys set up your coaching positions in the follows? You're building-based coaches. Anybody? Okay. So we have district-run but building-based coaches. Okay. How many of you guys are observed by the superintendent? Good. How many of you are observed by the assistant superintendent? And that could be any district leadership, etc. Observed by the tech director. That's always a fun one, right? Especially if the tech director and the curriculum people don't work together. Observed by curriculum director, right? Observed by the coordinator of coaching. Okay. Are the coordinator of coaching. Got a couple of those in here, right? You're owned by central office, meaning that's where your paycheck comes out of, but you're observed by the building. That's a fun one, because if one doesn't believe the other, right? But you're observed by the assistant principal. That's one of the more fun ones. That's nobody wants to deal with the position. So give it to that person. And then finally, and it looks like camp is dropping me off. Coaching position is an afterthought. How many of you guys feel like you're an afterthought? Way too many hands. Way too many hands. And that's okay, because we're here to think outside of the box. You ready with me? So here's the problem. I'm here to help with all this stuff. If you want, you can grab your little phones. There is a QR code here. It is a double opt-in, so in other words, it's going to ask you to put your name and email and stuff in there. But I actually am launching here something for all instructional coaches and coaching departments. It's called Your First 90 Days. It's basically a big, huge workbook that says, how do you go from today through October? Who do you talk to? What are the questions you do? Who do you need to speak with? Everything that we're working with. It is a double opt-in, so please check your email. When you hit the email and you hit subscribe on that, then you'll be sent the PDF on that stuff. So check that out, and of course I want to give thank outs to our friends. How many of you guys use Break@edu? Big supporters of them. Good stuff here. And I also want to say thank you to our friends at Guardrails for doing all that stuff. Now, look, let's be honest. This isn't our fault. This system is broken. How many of you guys today know an instructional coach that doesn't have a job anymore? How many of you guys know an instructional coach that's no longer an instructional coach? How many of you guys know a district that was downsized? I am shocked at some of the cities that have less than 3 instructional coaches. And I like 5 or 6 of them talked to me this week, right? So what is the problem? We have budget cuts. How many of you guys have seen instructional coaches being hit by budget cuts? Even in the district I'm teaching in now, they do not have any instructional coaches. They wiped them off the budget. That is not happy. The position was riffed, right? Hey, we don't need you anymore, right? We don't need you anymore. A lot of coaches are doing the big district migration. You're a coach here, but now you're a coach in 5 buildings. Or now you're a coach, or we're going to put you half-time. We're going to put you back in the classroom. And then, of course, there's a lot of coaches, especially now, that are going off into ed tech adventures. If you just walk down to the exhibit hall, you realize there's a lot of former instructional coaches there. That is a bad, bad thing. Now, it's a good thing because you've got coaches advocating for people in those in those ed tech companies, but they're not where they need to be. So why is this happening? Why do we have this issue? Well, number one, coaching positions are not created and supported. How many of you guys, we're a safe space here, but how many of you guys are feeling like your coaching position isn't fully supported, right? Coaches are hired, they're thrown into the fire, but they don't have any support. Again, let's go back to my own. Hey, Jeff, go do it. And you ask the principal, why am I here? And they're going, I don't know, he hired you. He didn't tell us anything about you. He just said, go do. Okay, well, that's not going to work. School districts don't understand how the coaching position works. And you can't blame them. How many superintendents were teachers? All of them? How many superintendents were coaches? Maybe? Small percentage? So they don't understand the position to be able to, right? And you get that a lot of the coordinators of, like when I was my second school district, my coordinator, I love her. She's amazing. She's wonderful. She's probably watching right now. She was a library media specialist. She had to learn all the instructional coaching to be able to support us. And she did a great job with that, right? Or number 3, coaches don't understand what their role is in the district. I'm going to play a game today. How many of you guys know what your role is in the district? Okay, we're gonna see. So this is what happens when you have badly set up problems. Number 1, coach enters the school building, but they're underused. Does that ring a bell? Okay, this is, by the way, this is turning into a therapy session for both of us, right? Phase 2, building administrators are not sure how to use coaches because the district admin has not set up the position properly. Yes? See? Good. Phase 3, teachers see coaches as voluntary. Got it? And they don't see the value in them. This happens a lot when you deal with digital coaches and reading staff coaches, right? I've gotten into a lot of good conversations where I go into a teacher's room and the teacher says, thank you for being here, but I'm now going to work with the reading coach because the reading coach is backed by the principal and the digital learning coach is backed by somebody in central office. Well, who are they going to listen to, right? So there's a lot of these situations. And then 4, coaching gets a bad reputation because it's seen as ineffective, but it's ineffective because of 3, because of 2. And what happens when 4 becomes the problem? Bye, right? So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at these long-term results. The long-term results are because teachers are now without coaches. They're overwhelmed without additional. How many of you guys know, especially those who have like one teacher or one coach for multiple buildings, right? They don't get the help. They don't get the support. They don't have that guide on the side to start building things. But even worse yet, there's a lot of students that are not there with innovative people. The 2% that is the coaches, they're not there working in all of the classrooms. So we have these issues. We have these things to work at. So today, and I'm glad that you're here, we're going to do 3 things together, and I want you to help me follow this through after we're finished. We're going to start defining the instructional coaching position. We're going to start defending the instructional coaching position, and we're going to start demanding that instructional coaching positions get treated and set up the right way. Are you with me? So, what do you want to see when you walk in the classroom? This is the question that I ask every principal. This is my pitch. This is my setup from everything down. When I walk into work with the school district, when I walk in with the principal, how many times have you guys asked your principals this question? When you walk in, what do you want to see? What's the second question? The second question should always be, how do you plan on supporting the teachers in reaching your vision? Who helps with that? That's what your instructional coaches are. The principals have to be taught to set the vision and then share with the teachers that the way to get to the vision is with you. If you are the way that the principal is going to hit their goals, if you are the way that the teachers are going to help the building meet their goals, are you now more valuable? Are you into more classrooms? Are you now working on all of the classrooms and students and teachers and stuff? I always start with, what do you want to see when you walk into the classroom? And you're going to notice, I have principals saying, I just want student discourse. I want teachers work. No principal is ever going to say, I want to see more Chromebook use on Google Classroom, which makes it difficult if your job is bring Google in, right? So let's explore how all of this works, because we have a lot of good resources. When I ask the question, what do you want to see when you walk into a classroom? This is the answer. If you've ever gone through the ISTE standards for students, that's what I want to see when I walk in the classroom. If you ever looked through the ISTE standards for teachers, for coaches, this is what I want to see. Now, I don't walk into a classroom and say, hey, you're going to be domain 3.5, but I want my students, right? Where are they? I want my students to be creative communicators. I want them to be digital citizens. I want them to be knowledge constructors. The problem that we run into is that we as coaches, and especially in administration, we use the wrong word. We use the word and. What does the word and mean? And means and. I want you to do this, and I want you to do this. And as soon as somebody says, you're going to teach science, you're a new science teacher, you got this brand new curriculum, and by the way, I want you to bring AI. What is that science teacher now thinking? Whoa. If we change the language on our district, if we stop using the word and we use a different word, and that different word is through. I want you to teach science, but we're going to do it through Google Classroom because it's going to make it easier. I want you to go teach biology, but I want you to do it through this AI chatbot, through this Canva thing, through this, because the through takes the weight off of what's going on. Now, I did put something here in the middle. I, honest to goodness, don't know if this still exists. But if you ever have a chance, and if it's still Googleable, the National EdTech Plan. Last year, I did a whole podcast on it. I think last time I checked, the link still works. But if you have a chance to read through, is it in there? Okay. I'm pretty sure that I downloaded a copy, so you might be able to find it on the site, and if not, I'll get one to you guys. But this is the answer for what we want the classroom to look like. When I look at my leaders, I want them to be connected, right? I want them to be visionary planners. I want them to do that through everything that we're going to be working on here. So number one, the answer to all of this stuff, it starts with our district strategic plan. When I ask a coach what their role is, they sometimes have a hard time with that. We'll get to that in a second. I want you to think about your district strategic plan. We're going to insert our ISTE standards. We're going to insert the National EdTech Plan. We're going to develop a unified vision. That's a biggie. Does your district have a vision for your position? Or is it, well, the super hired you, go work? Is it set up the right way? We're going to learn how to set up an instructional coaching department, and we're going to let the data do the talking. So let's continue down with all this stuff, okay? Quick activity time. Here it is. Some of you guys raised your hand. I want you guys to be open with me. What happens in where are we? San Antonio stays in San Antonio. Instructional coaches. What's your job? Somebody tell me. Be brave, be daring. What's your job? Get in the classroom and do what teachers ask you. Are you a coach? What's your job? Supporting teachers. Anybody else? Yes. Supporting teachers around best practices in Tier 1 instruction. Anybody else? What's your job? Introduce new tools. Anybody else? Yes. Modeling how to use new tools. Here's the issue with that. I'm going to stand back here so nobody hates me. That's not your job. That's not your job. So what's your job? Think about this for a second. What's your job? Your job is to do what? What? Educate kids. What? So what's your job? I want you to think a step higher for a second. Can you guys hear me okay? There's a school district that wants to raise their reading scores. In their strategic plan, it says, we're going to raise our reading scores, right? Superintendent signed off on it. Board of Ed signs off on it. Community sees it. They put that on their district site. They want to raise their reading scores 10%. How are they going to do that? Well, they're going to hire a reading coach. What's the job of the reading coach? It's to raise the reading scores 10%. Now, all the answers that we just said is not what your job is. It's what? How you do your job. Does that make sense? My job was to go bring in Google. How I did that was by working and was by meeting and was by this and all the interactions. Does that make sense? Has anybody ever heard somebody clarify that one, right? So when my superintendent's saying, where's the data? He wants to know, where's the data that you're raising the reading scores? Where's the data that shows by working with Cindy, her reading scores are going up? But we as instructional coaches aren't taught to do that because we're not taught to do that. So when we look at what the job is, our job is to figure out what are those strategic goals. Just show of hands, how many of you guys have ever read your strategic plans? Do you know where you sit in the strategic plan? You're right underneath of it because you're the how is that going to happen? That's why you're there. If they didn't need you, they wouldn't have that as a goal. Have you guys ever read your school improvement plans? Where do you sit on? You need to know where you sit on that because that is your number one goal. Does this make sense? Right? So we have one of these things here. Like, this is where we are. Like, what is our job as a coach? We have this, what do you do and how do we do it? We need to know what this is before we can figure this out. Because I can ask you guys put it this way. What's the number one thing that coaches talk about in all the chat rooms and all the Facebook groups? Coaching cycles. Can you have a coaching cycle if you don't know why you're having a coaching cycle? Can you say to a teacher, hey, I'm going to come to your room 5 times over the next 3 or 4 weeks? Why? But if the principal says, Cindy, we need to get you to learn how to have better reading scores. Here's Jeff. He's going to help you. What is Cindy now going to say? How often can we meet? My principal has a goal for me. I need to meet it. You are the answer to how we're going to do that. Yes, ma'am. Uh-oh. Through. I'm going to raise the reading scores through using Microsoft Reading Coach. I'm going to raise the reading scores through using Desmos because it does da-da-da-da-da-da, and I can now do this. I'm going to raise the reading scores through. And as soon as you do that, now you and the reading coach can walk in and go, okay, and they're going to look at you, what do you got? Through, right? We're over here on how do you do it. We're over here on what's your newsletter. We're over here on what's your website. How many of you guys have a website? We're going to talk about this in a little bit. How many of you guys do a newsletter? We're going to talk a lot about that, okay? So I want us to start to ground this in. Your job is what? And you might not have the answer for it, right? Does this make sense? You're right? So what are your goals and how are they? He's a coordinator person, right? What are your goals and how is your people meeting that? So I want you to figure this one out. Take a moment. You don't have to, this isn't going to be like a big Q&A, but what's your essential question? What's the driving vision? Here's what I came up with, and this is what I go for whenever I work with school districts, classrooms, teachers, etc. How can we create the innovative and engaging learning environments? If a teacher is not innovative and engaging, are the students going to be paying attention? This is going to answer your question too, my friend back there, right? How do we get that teacher to create engaging? Well, we do it through, you name something. How do we create innovative and engaging learning environments that focus on the authentic student activities? We know what those are. Just walk down to the hall. All those great things. We're going to use Book Creator to create something because we're trying to teach 5-paragraph essays. I do a lot with Google Sites. We take a 5-paragraph essay and we turn it into a poster. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5. I'm using Google Sites to teach literacy. I'm teaching Google Sites to teach storytelling. It just happens to be on a site, but I could do it on a Canva. I could do it on a piece of paper. So how do we create an innovative, engaging learning environment that focuses on the authentic, right? It has to be something for them, and achievement. Doesn't that have every single person in central office written all over it? Doesn't that have data attached to it? Doesn't that have your principal's ear going, that's what I want to see when I walk into the classroom? Now, who's the most valuable person in the school? So here's how I set this up. I'm going to give you guys my first 90-day roadmap here. The first thing that I like to do when working with this is I want to set up a pre-survey. How many of you guys have ever surveyed your staff? How many of you guys have ever surveyed your staff without the help of your principal? It's difficult, right? You can't do it, right? Because of course the first question is, why am I doing this? Who's seeing the data? What do we need? Is the union involved, right? So I got a couple of blueprints, and if you scan that thing, you can get into this stuff too, and all the resources I'm going to give you guys at the end. But I started to create this survey. And the survey was basically a Google form. I met with the principal ahead of time and I said, this is our goal, right? So let's start with the vision. Our vision is to enhance the use of digital learning applications, specifically Google, in our school district. You with me? I'm not teaching you Google Classroom. I'm enhancing your learning through the use of. So I started the survey essentially like this. The purpose of this non-evaluation, it's a biggie, right? Is to collect data on skills. Please select the most appropriate box, familiar with, etc. Are they going to read that? Some of them will. Now, here's the next thing, and this is the fun part. Let's do a quick survey here. How many of you guys, out of a score of 1 through 5, score of 1 through 5, 5 being the best, how many would be a 5 at Google Docs? 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so look around the room. You guys are you're the 2%ers. So then what we did was we put together the survey. 5 bullet points. The top one was creating, editing, sharing. The second one was formatting text. The next one was table of contents, revision history, tables, and hyperlinks. You seeing it yet? The next one was commenting, suggesting edits, citations, tools, equations, and other things. And then finally, Google Docs add-ons. Now, there's a little bit of philosophy to this, and if you want this form, I'll send you this form. This is actually the SAMR model at work. Can everybody do creating and editing a doc? You'd hope so. Everybody gets a 5, right? Do you think everybody can do formatting with text? Maybe that's a 4? How about writing a table? How many of your teachers really know how to do table of contents? Because to do table of contents, you need to pay, right? So maybe that's a 3. Commenting. Well, that's, again, think of your SAMR model, right? SAMR. Here's your M. Can I modify things? Do things that I couldn't do on paper? Maybe that's a 2. And then who knows Google Docs add-ons? So what I'm hoping to do is to get a teacher to think critically and go, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's generally the chart that I get. Now I get them. Something that was me. Is that? Okay. So now after we have that, then I asked him this. Based on their scores above, based on the fact that I've just given you the fact that you're not a 5, right? Now how many of you guys would change your answer and say, well, now that I've scored myself on that rubric, where am I on here? Does that make sense? Because what am I really getting to? I'm really getting to this. This is a heat map. I took all of the scores from all the staff and I put them into here. And then I decided to color code it. Now, what does this mean for a coach? This here is my digital classroom. And you can substitute these things how you want, but I got docs, slides, forms. That's your day-to-day stuff. Google Classroom is can you create something with a digital environment? Sites is can you build a lesson? And then for my district at the time, it was Teams. But here we have this green thing going on. What can I extrapolate from this? Number one, I can see where my high flyers are and I can see where my laggards are. I can see all the scores. But now what can I say to my principal? I can say to my principal, look, if I look at the final score, it really is only 3 groups of people. Hey, can I do 3 different PD sessions on the same topic at different levels? You with me on this? I can now say, look, I know that when you walk into the classroom, because you said when you walk into the classroom, you want to see more innovation with whatever. Can I do a thing on Google Forms? Because you want to do exit tickets, right? You want to do exit tickets, right? So I know over here, most people are over in this, but you know what? 13. This is the one that I really want to focus on because you want to go in there. So I'll make a deal with you. Let me do this specifically. I want you to go to Mrs. Smith and say, go work with Jeff and come back to me in 2 months. So now I have, and I haven't walked into any classrooms yet. This is before all this stuff happens. Does this make sense? So then, of course, I can make out my little charts and graphs, and I did all this stuff through, Google Sheets and Google Sites. But now I can look at this and say, overall, on Google Forms, the majority of my people are a 15. So what does that mean? Are they using exit tickets? Probably not. How do we do that? Now let's set some goals. Now let's put all this stuff together. So you see how this is going to work. We put this together. One of the other things that I like to do as a coach is to collect that data. How do I do that? I found an application 3 years ago. It's totally free. It's called Notion. Most educators have never heard about it, but I use Notion to put together an amazing instructional coaches dashboard and command center. This is all databases talking to each other, but it's not like over-the-head databases. Really, really simple. But this is how I track my coaching cycles, my goal setting. It doesn't matter if you're using Excel and Microsoft Forms or Google Sheets or Notion or anything, but as long as you have something. Some of you guys might have heard of Connect Hub. Connect Hub is wonderful. I built this as the free version of that. And it's got all the analytics and stuff in the back. It's got forms, it's got charts, it's got graphs, and you can customize this however you need. I'm just showing you this because there's a lot of polar bears in the snow. Oh, so over here, we've got things like, I put our staff directory into here, I put our coaching cycle tracker, our daily habits, SMART goals, projector tasks, anything that you need. I kind of built this specifically for coaches, and if you're an administrator out there, I've got the bigger version of this also that has all of the procedures, all of the applications, who's got what, all of the, the financial process. This is like the complete everything. I used to be a director of digital learning. This got me through my day. So if you're interested in about that stuff, let me know. Happy to talk to you about that. So surveys, does that all make sense? Temperature check. Are we doing okay? I got like 15 minutes left. We're doing all right? All right, let's talk about newsletters. Raise your hand again. How many of you guys do newsletters? Awesome. So here's the deal. Are they working? How do you know that when you put out a newsletter, it's working? Who creates the newsletter? What creates the newsletter? What's your process for creating the newsletter? What's the ROI? How many of you guys have ever had a teacher come up to you and go, I loved that newsletter that you put out yesterday. I saw this thing. I want you in my... How many of you guys have ever had that opportunity? Right. So let's fix that today. You ready to fix that? Now I'm going to give you a warning. This is going to get controversial, so I'm going to stand away from the crowd for a second, just in case you guys get upset with me. You guys ready for some controversial stuff? How do you guys currently communicate with your staff? Some people do it through chat. Some people do it through email. Some people do it through newsletters. I was in a school where my principal said, you cannot email people unless I am approving it. I've had a principal say, you cannot communicate with people. You have to do it through my newsletter. Well, how often is that? Then I have to go through your secretary. Can I be successful if I have to go through you constantly? So let's take a look at what we got here. There's many, many ways that coaching has communication issues with teachers. Number one, we have face-to-face conversations. How many of you guys love doing face-to-face? I do. That's your relationships. That's your bread and butter. That's how we get all that stuff. Group meetings. How many of you guys are able to do group meetings, like all the third grade teachers, all the science teachers, etc.? Less hands, though, if you noticed, right? Building or district PD sessions. How many of your districts actually take advantage of you guys? Okay, I'm going to ask it a different way. How many of your districts take something that you know, you love, you're passionate, and then spend $4,000 on consultants? I had a district that I helped the district spend like $2 or $3 million on ViewSonic boards, and I was like the district expert. You know what they did for the next PD day? They brought ViewSonic in. I'm going, you know the deal, right? Hey guys, you could have done what? Right? And then finally over here, how many of you guys have coaching websites, resources, and stuff like that? Do you guys check in analytics on those websites? Who's the website for? Is it for you, or is it for the teachers? See, I believe it's for you. Because what teacher wakes up in the morning and goes, I can't wait to go to that coach's website. But I love sitting down with a coach and pulling up the website and saying, hey, look at what I have for you. Does that make sense? Flip the script. You'll be successful with that. All right? So what is the point of your coaching newsletter? Let's just have a conversation here. Okay? Number one, are your newsletters, number one, converting into classroom conversations? How many of you guys know, analytically, that your newsletter is tracking as a classroom conversation? Not a lot of hands. How many of you guys are saying that your newsletter is a burden to put together? Good. Not good, but good. How many of you guys think that putting a newsletter together is a time drain due to everything you need to find? You're out on social media, you're checking blogs, you're going to ISTE, you're finding the content, right? So if all of this stuff is going on, let's see what we can do to make you have more time on your hands. And let's see what we can do to convert all that stuff. It's time to start thinking as a marketer. It's time to start thinking as an entrepreneur. So how can we create better newsletters? Does this equal what you do? You spend hours of time researching for your newsletter. Yep. See a lot of people shaking their heads. How many of you guys make videos specifically for your newsletters? Got some people shaking their hands. Designs. How many of you guys are really intent on making things pretty? Right? It's got to be pretty, right? Bitmoji classrooms. You guys still doing all that stuff, right? How many of you guys are looking for the wow factor, right? Now, here's my favorite ones. The questions that all the coaches ask. What platform is your newsletter? How many of you guys are on S'more? How many of you guys found out that Gmail can actually do newsletters natively? You guys know that, right? Go down into Gmail at the bottom. It says make it look prettier. The newsletter, and like you can make newsletter-looking things into a Gmail, right? So what's new and useful? How many of you guys are looking for what's new? Are the teachers looking for what's new and useful? But we're spending time doing it. And then I love this one. Please be honest, raise your hand. How many of you guys put your newsletters in the bathrooms? There's always a couple, and I do it, right? Potty PD is awesome. That's how you get a lot of the conversations. So make sure that stuff happens. I love doing all of that stuff. But let's take a look at what is a coaching, newsletter, right? Your traditional coaching newsletters, your audience is the teacher. Your content is the cool tools or new updates. Your platform is usually the popular applications. You release it weekly. You're doing all this work weekly. It's your part-time job. And the purpose is to help teachers learn about whatever you want them to learn about because you're passionate about that. Here's the problem. We want to change this. We want to put this on its side. I'd like to have you guys think about your coaching newsletters this way. Your audience is your district leadership. But I'm giving it to my teachers. Yes, your audience is your district leadership. The content in it is your district strategic goals. Here's how you can raise the reading scores this week. Here's the applications that we can use to raise the reading scores. You see where I'm going with this, right? The platform is the district initiative. Why are we putting our newsletter on S'more if we're trying to teach our teachers how to do Google Sites? Right? It doesn't matter. I do all of my stuff on Google Sites as my new. Why? Because I want the teacher to go, how'd you do that? Oh, let me come into your classroom. I'll show you. Everything that we do has to be marketing to go into there. Your release schedule is based on the PD schedule. Why am I doing it every week? The teachers are on overload on that stuff. It has to also be able to get you in to support the building goals and initiatives. Does this make sense? If I'm crazy, just let me know. So here we kind of have this breakdown of how things are. It's not the teacher. Yes, you have to speak teacher, but really your job is to do what? Tell me, your job is to do what? Support what? So what's your newsletter based off of? Here's the deal, guys. The role of your instructional coach is to support the district plans and to help the district achieve their goals. And the punchline is very simple. The newsletter is one of your tools. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And if it's how you do it, do you have to do it every week? No. Make it easy on yourself. Make it absolutely easy on yourself. So, my goodness, 3-part coaching newsletter. Very simple. What does the district or principal want to see? What standards and practices? And what are teachers interested in? And the way that I put all this stuff together is I come up with a simple triangle here. I'm going to do this to support the district goals. I'm supporting the standards and practices. And I'm supporting classroom innovation. I can do that with one newsletter. And if you do it right, are you going to hit everybody in here? Absolutely. So let's talk about coaching cycles. How many of you guys do coaching cycles? Good. I think everybody does coaching cycles wrong. I'm going to back up. But I think everybody does coaching cycles wrong. The reason I say that is because everybody has always talked about coaching cycles being horizontal. What is a coaching cycle? I'm going to meet with you today, then we're going to meet with you tomorrow, I'm going to meet with you the next day. That's this. How many of that cycle do you have to run? 100 to get every teacher? Right. So they're horizontal. They go this way. Well, let's talk a little bit about how a vertical coaching cycle works. This is extremely important. First thing that you do, you got to meet with your principal. What are your goals? Oh, I'm going to raise reading scores. Great. When I walk into the classroom, I want to see this. The first week of a coaching cycle, you get up in front of your class, your entire school building, and you do your district PD. You get as many people as possible. And at the end of that district PD, what has to happen? Your principal has to stand next to you and go, did you like that? Great. Because next week, Jeff is meeting with all the 3rd and 4th grade teachers. So we're going from this down to this. Do you see it? Now it's already set up because who's leading the coaching cycle? Is it you? It's the principal. It's the district leadership because you're serving who? So now the next week you've got all the 3rd grade teachers. So you bring in your 3rd grade unit lesson plans on how to do that. Then after that, we've already identified through those surveys which of the 3 or 4 teachers I'm going to hit. Now, by the time I get to the bottom, do you think other teachers have found me? Yes. If I started at the bottom and I worked with you and then I worked with you and then am I going to get all those teachers? We need to start thinking of coaching cycles as vertical, not horizontal. And when you do that, you realize that, number 1, you are the most important person. Number 2, your principal stands next to you and says, this is the person that's going to take us there. So I'm going to run through this really quickly because my goodness, look at the time. Sorry, podcaster can talk. Every single newsletter has a student spotlight up at the top. But then these other things here, they just go. I don't make the same newsletter twice. This just goes down. Are we running out of time? I'm sorry. So I can go on, 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 I can go on. Guys, there's a lot of stuff in here. I'm sorry that I ran over. Does this make sense? You know that I like to talk about this stuff. This is what the podcast is all about. We can talk about this stuff and we can get it together. I want to share with you about some new teacher orientations, about daytime professional development. But the question is, where can you start? And the simple answer is, let's do this together. Guys, I want to say thank you. There's a lot of stuff to get to. I could do this for 3 hours. If you ever want to work with me, please call me. If your district wants to work with me, I would love to have you guys do that too. Last month, some of you guys might know, I launched my first book. And it is all of this stuff. It has the examples, it has all the forms, it has all the functions and everything. You can do that to get it. And if you want, I have 4 copies. So the first 4 people that come on up and say hi, I'm going to put them right here. But seriously, guys, thank you for being here. Okay? And I appreciate you all and have a good flight home. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to hit everything. But thank you, guys. Please do the evaluation really, really high and find me.